Dear BC students, alumni, faculty, and staff, greetings from Beirut. My name is Colleen Fitzgerald, and I'm a 2011 graduate from Boston College School of Social Work. I apologize that I cannot be with you today, but I'm committed to my work here in Beirut, Lebanon. In my absence, however, I'm sure that my mom, Kathleen Fitzgerald, will be doing a great job to represent me. Mom, please wave hello, and thanks for being there today. It's a great honor and privilege to be receiving this year's Distinguished Recent Alumni Award from the BC Graduate School of Social Work. I especially would like to thank Whitney Henderson for my nomination and for the BC Alumni Association Board for my selection. I would also like to thank my family who've been with me on this journey especially my mom, who can recount every single story that I've shared during our weekly Skype sessions. As I've been preparing for this speech and reflecting on my life since graduating from BC 4 years ago, it's been difficult to make sense of everything that I've experienced. I constantly wrestle with some very difficult questions as a humanitarian worker in the Middle East. Why am I here? What do I represent? Am I really making a difference? Or just perpetuating colonialism? Yet despite my uncertainty and the constant unpredictability of what will come next in my life, there's one thing that has remained, and that's that I'm very proud to be a social worker in our world. I believe that our profession is actually a calling, not just a career. And in my interactions in the US and abroad, I'm always proud to introduce myself as a social worker. In case you're curious, the word for social work in Arabic is iksaiya ijtimaiya. My calling came undoubtedly during my work for 2 years as a case manager after college. My first role was through the Jesuit Volunteer Corps in California. I was placed in a women's shelter for survivors of domestic violence. Following my year in California, I took a job working with Catholic Charities in Boston as a case manager in a residential substance abuse treatment program for mothers. Over those 2 years, I quickly realized that the majority of people who had become my role models and stood for the values that I admired were in fact social workers. Ultimately, there was no question I was born to do this work. Boston College was my top choice to study social work because of the university's Jesuit background and also because of the global concentration within the MSW program. Over the past 4 years, working and living in the Middle East and North Africa, I've considered myself a representative and an advocate for the social work profession. I often rejoice when meeting other social workers in the field and insist that we become friends because there's so few of us. My passion for social work in a large part is thanks to my education from Boston College, from my fellow students, mentors including Teresa Shermer and Eileen Earing, and professors like Paul Klein, Rocio Calvo, Robin Warsh, and several others. I'm grateful for the discussions that were held in the classrooms of McGuinn Hall and for my training through my internships that laid foundations that have enabled me to meet this part of the world during a tumultuous time with a social work perspective, a perspective that I believe is more and more essential in our globalized and ever-changing worlds. My social work education at BC taught me to encounter individuals, families, and communities in collaboration, with humility, and to seek strengths rather than deficits. We were trained to look at problems through the individual and macro level, with curiosity rather than judgment. At the core, I believe that I learned from my time at BC that social work is fundamentally about building relationships. Relationships that are built on finding a common ground, with mutual respect and meaningful participation. My understanding of being a social worker is best summarized in the words of an Aboriginal activist, Leela Watson. If you've come to help me, you're wasting your time. If you've come because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. So it was just 4 years ago, in January of 2011, that I departed from Boston for an internship in Amman, Jordan, as part of the global cohort, along with 2 other fellow BC interns, Katya and Kristen, and armed with my social work textbooks and a reflection journal. I realize now that I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Within our first months in Jordan, the Arab Spring unfolded around us. And since then, I've bounced around the Middle East and North Africa, involved in humanitarian affairs in response to the Arab Spring and its backlash. I've had some incredible experiences, having witnessed protests in Tahrir Square in Cairo, celebrations following the overthrow of the Gaddafi regime in Benghazi, and the dire fight for survival of Syrian refugee families throughout Lebanon. There was nothing that could have truly prepared me for these experiences, but my education from BC certainly was a tremendous asset, both personally and professionally, as well as the unwavering support of my family, who love me unconditionally and are always willing to listen, despite some very difficult circumstances, such as celebratory gunfire during Skype calls while I was in Libya. Currently in Lebanon, I'm working with the International Rescue Committee, and I'm leading a nationwide child protection case management coaching program. What this really means is that I'm responsible to train social workers from around the country to prevent and respond to abuse, neglect, exploitation, and violence against children through case management. Social workers were given a core case management training in the beginning of the year, and we've conducted several trainings through the course of the past year. I also facilitate monthly peer-to-peer groups in each of the 5 regions throughout the country, where we offer a space for the social workers who've been engaged in the training program to discuss complex cases and express their reactions to some of the challenges that they're facing regularly in the fields. Unfortunately, in each of the countries that I've worked in Jordan, in Libya, and in Lebanon, the majority of social workers are not valued for their role in the communities that they work. Frequently, they're undertrained and only have studied sociology or memorized theories in university. They're often overlooked and underpaid, and very frequently have unmanageable caseloads, just 30, 40, 50 open cases with some of the most challenging issues that I've ever seen as a caseworker. In each of my jobs over the past 4 years, I've relied heavily on my social work skills. Quite practically, as I'm currently training social workers, I've been referencing my old social work textbooks on issues such as interview skills, comprehensive assessment, case planning, and termination, as well as many other subjects. I'm also constantly using my cross-cultural communication skills and validating the experiences of the social workers. More broadly, my social work education has helped me examine my identity and the power relationships that exist at both the interpersonal and structural level here in Lebanon and globally. Most importantly, I've utilized my interpersonal skills as I've built relationships with some very resistant individuals, including a psychologist in Jordan, Ministry of Health representatives in Libya, and UN donors here in Lebanon. Don't tell them I said that. It's been a privilege to be in this part of the world over the past 4 years. But these times of upheaval in the Middle East and North Africa have come with a tremendous amount of suffering and loss. At the macro level, Libya has been wavering on the cusp of chaos and perhaps a second civil war as militias battle for power throughout the country while the West seemingly has given up. Practically all foreign aid has been severed and the humanitarian community has been evacuated because of the deteriorated security situation. Meanwhile, the Syrian crisis has been coined the largest political, humanitarian, and development challenge of our time. According to the UN, it's estimated that the total regional refugee population will be up to 4.27 million by the end of 2015. while there are currently 7 million displaced within Syria. Here in Lebanon, there are currently over 1.5 million refugees in a country with a population of only 4 million. My current role training social workers in Lebanon allows me to have a glimpse at the suffering at the micro level as well. Through discussions with social workers, stories of terrible family violence, child prostitution, and neglect have been recounted. With drastic shortages in resources and services for refugees, many social workers feel a sense of hopelessness as they attempt to support these children and families in a country that doesn't recognize their status as refugees. These macro and micro realities, in addition to the failure of the humanitarian system and international politics, have clearly been trying. We often face short funding cycles, sometimes as little as 3 months, and short-sighted emergency response efforts. Sometimes it feels as though global politics drive our work and that other programs are simply band-aids for much deeper and complex issues. Having witnessed these issues, it's clear that there are significant systemic structures of injustice and inequality that often feel overwhelming and impossible to face. However, I believe that we as social workers have a duty to address these realities. From my limited experience, I see that there is a significant need for stronger social work advocacy at the global level. The values of our profession are essential to face the social problems of our generation in our ever-changing, interconnected world. There is a space and a need for social workers to spread the ideals of social justice, human rights, and cultural humility in the development sector. In my work, I've witnessed communities who are suffering from the terrible realities of war, displacement, and loss, who are in grave need for connection, empathy, and advocacy. Yet there are many individuals and families who have the capacity to be remarkably resilient and bring resources and hope despite the circumstances. It's through a social work lens that empowerment and advocacy can take place to address both the needs and the strengths of these communities. I believe there are several ways that the social work profession can be promoted globally and on multiple levels. You, as BC students, professors, and alumni, can help to be greater advocates for the profession and for the value of social workers, that social workers can bring to communities and societies. The global concentration for Boston College particularly is a great opportunity for students to be proud representatives of the profession while exhibiting humility and openness to learn through internships and intercultural exchange. I encourage more social workers to join the humanitarian sector to support local professionals and structures in creating sustainable solutions to modern problems and crises. On a greater scale, I believe that institutions like the International Federation of Social Workers can increase advocacy for the roles and the value of social work at the global level. In addition, there is a need to improve opportunities for more diversity within the field of international social work and to encourage exchanges between the global North and South. It's been a privilege to witness history and to build relationships with people from the Middle East, who too frequently are misunderstood and misrepresented in Western media. The founder of the social work profession in the US, Jane Addams, once stated, "What, after all, has maintained the human race on this old globe, despite all the calamities of nature and the tragic failings of mankind, if not the faith in new possibilities and courage to advocate for them?" I would like to humbly accept this award in honor for the advocates for a better tomorrow in the Middle East, for all the social workers who I've met in my travels, who work tirelessly for refugees in their own communities. In closing, I sincerely thank Boston College School of Social Work for the knowledge, the skills, and the opportunities that helped me pave my path over the past 4 years. I'm truly humbled to receive this award, and I thank all of you for allowing me to share with you today. Enjoy the ceremony and best of luck.